everybody, and welcome to the CT Sports Town Show. My name is Christopher Saunders, and I'm pleased to have on who just finished his 13th season in terms of girls basketball as a head coach with Newtown. I think he said 21 seasons overall. Been around the game for a long, long time. Coach Jeremy O'Connell is with me. Coach, I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you very much, Chris. It's been a long time. We've talked about this for a while, and it's an honor to be on the show with you. Thank you.
You know, it's awesome to be able to talk about a game that I think a lot of people may I think agree that kind of deserves a lot of respect, right? Deserves a lot of attention. Sometimes it does not. And obviously, you being on here coincidentally enough, maybe this is 2 years in the making, but there was some news that kind of quote unquote broke over the last 24 to 48 hours. We'll get into that in just a few minutes. But I want to talk about, before we talk about the showcase, you and I were just talking about the practices and what you were able to do with your team. And obviously, with it being the beginning of summer vacation, there's other sports, there's softball, there's obviously, basketball tournaments going around and so on. But you did have some players that were able to participate. And you talked about how awesome it was to be able to not have an intense practice, but just kind of lay the foundation for the next season. Talking about how things went.
It was fantastic. I was really excited about the turnout of the girls that were able to come for our practices. One of the things that we always kind of get nervous about is once the season's over, no matter what they're doing elsewhere, are they doing some of the things that we need as a program to be successful the following year? So given the opportunity to just have a few practices, kind of just re-emphasize all of the strategies that we need as a program to kind of be successful and give them some of the drills and some of the opportunity to kind of enhance their game in a lot of different ways.
Do you feel like, Coach, that being able to have these practices, because like you said, the first question one of your players was, is this going to be an intense practice? Which obviously you want practices to be intense, but I think there's a different level, right? I would say it's between 1 to 10. And it sounds like it was in the low 5s, 4s, 3s, because you just wanted them, to have fun because there's no games coming up as far as within the CIAC. But like you said, you want to be able to have the opportunity to show them, hey, these are kind of what we're expecting for next season, but don't go crazy and not sleep at night because we're just trying to have fun, but also learn and play the game that everybody loves as well.
Yeah, especially when you lose seniors like everyone typically does, and those seniors are a huge part of the program. The younger kids now can see kind of what opportunities are there for them. And then the rising seniors also can see what kind of leadership roles they need to fill and take on to make sure you have a successful program.
I think it's huge, Coach, to be able to have that. Now, I kind of want to talk about, without giving up as far as what you worked on with your players, what was did you kind of break it down, the fine detail, dribbling, obviously working on various moves and such, being able to get the passes as crisp as they could? What were some of the things that you worked on with your Newtown program?
Well, we always do ball handling drills. It's important for every player, 1 through 5, no matter what position you are, to be able to handle the basketball, especially with the style and the tempo that we play. There's times that when we get out and run, the 5 might have the ball or the 4 might have the ball, and they need to be able to make good decisions with it and have the opportunities to handle the basketball. Aside from that, we actually went into a lot of gameplay stuff. We broke it down offensively and defensively to try to go over some of the nuances that we need in order for us to be able to run a seamless thing. And we also started putting in some things that would help us when they actually implement the 35-second shot clock. So I think that was really important, just to be like, all right, we need a couple more quick hitters in our arsenal, just so, when we get down to 8 seconds, all right, we can run something and try to get a shot off. And, that's going to be a huge difference to every program in the state. Even a program like ours that runs up and down the floor, there's still times where we might take 20, 30, 40 seconds off the clock trying to find a good shot. You're no longer going to be able to do that. So giving us a little bit of opportunity to prepare for the huge change was very beneficial.
Now, I don't know and I didn't know this until I talked to Dan Scavone, who's a part of the CIAC, and it was great having him on during a couple of the NVL games when he came up to watch the Crosby Bulldogs. He came to the Palace twice. And if you've ever been to Crosby, it's a beautiful gym. They've got banners everywhere. You probably know about some of the players that they've had. in terms of
Yes.
the boys side, but also to the girls side, there's some 1,000 point scorers up there as well for girls
Yes, there
basketball.
are.
But when I asked him about the shot clock, as far as where it would be in gyms, right? And he mentioned something, and I'll never forget this. He talked about how just like in baseball, in terms of Major League Baseball, minor league baseball, college, it's going to be in different spots because not every gym is built the same way. And I don't know if the shot clock is at the Newtown gym yet. It probably isn't. I could be wrong. It's not.
It
So
is not.
were you able to kind of not mimic the shot clock, but maybe you had a stopwatch and you kind of just watched the clock go and saw your players? Were you able to do anything like that?
Well, we run every drill we have is time. So we always have the clock going. So we would have someone, kind of breaking down with different possessions. All right, this is how much time we've just taken. This is what we've done. This is what we need to do to improve upon that.
Okay. See, I think that's very, very smart because again, like you said, the less of an adjustment with the shot clock for teams, and there's going to be an adjustment. I mean, you think about going into next season, you've got the shot clock, you've got the fouls on top of
Yep.
players. Hopefully the coaches are still there, but and on top of that, it's what, a 2 week span, and then the season basically starts.
Yes, exactly. If 14 day, or day 15 is when we have our first game, and we always open up on that exact day. So trying to, I would love in the future, or maybe even this year, if they could implement something where, all right, you can continue to have once a week, 2 hours, even if it's just to work on the shot clock. That's going to, because it's going to be a crucial part. I know it's going to affect us, and I know it's really going to affect other teams as well. So giving everyone kind of an opportunity just to get used to that aspect of the game, which none of these kids have ever had to deal with before. And coaches, we've been fortunate that we've played a couple games in New York over the years, a couple games in Massachusetts that has a shot clock, but that's only one game every 5 years that we've done it. So it's going to be a huge difference, not only for players, but even coaches on how they game plan and what they game plan.
What was the showcase like, Coach, over the last 2 days? I mean, talk to me
Uh,
about the experience.
it was fantastic. First of all, there's not often times where we get to see all the other coaches in the fraternity. And it is great to see all the other coaches across the state. Made a lot of good friends over the years, and just seeing a lot of people who I really respect and I enjoy what they do for not only basketball, but more importantly for girls that play basketball. So that was a highlight for me, was being able to see everyone and being able to play teams that we would typically never scrimmage or play, or even just go watch teams. You hear of all these teams that have great seasons or have, these unbelievable players or good philosophies and coaches. It's really hard to get out and see them. So being able to just kind of meander around the gymnasiums and watch everyone was really beneficial. And then for us as a program, being able to play and put in that game experience of some of the things that we were trying to work on in practice, and it kind of gave them an opportunity to see where we could be moving forward.
Well, you think about too the relationship, as far as you mentioned, with the coaching aspects of maybe some teams you would never see, being able to mingle and talk with them, even the players too, with the opposing, with their players, the opposing players. If there's years where maybe you're struggling to find an out of league game, now you can maybe go back to that and say, hey, you want to do a home and home, over the next 2 years with, I don't know, let's say NFA or Kennedy here in Town Plot. I'm just throwing out teams, but that's kind of that other part that I think some people forget as far as outside the lines.
And it's funny you say that, because we do now play NFA every year. Courtney and I have a great relationship. She's fantastic. And, that's one of the teams that, hey, we're going to go up there. She comes down to us, and this will be, I think, year 4 now that we've done that. And we're hoping to continue it moving forward. And it really is hard to find non-league games. Like, you try to continue with the same teams, but obviously sometimes some teams, if they have newer coaches, want to move in a different direction, and totally understandable. And, like, I'll try to do my schedule by April. So I'll have everything right after the season's done, so I don't have to worry about anything. But, every once in a while you'll get a phone call in June. Hey, sorry, we're not going to play you this year. Okay, now I have to go back to the drawing board and try to find someone, try to piece in where a time slot is. So being able to, like you said, interact with a lot of other coaches that, hey, we can't for the next 2 years, but maybe in 3 years, if we both have an opportunity, love to get a home and home with you.
Well, I'm not going to lie to you. Just because I want to do Newtown on the radio, love to be able to come down and play Holy Cross.
Yeah. The one thing about with Holy Cross, though, which is one of the dominant programs in our state and has been, Frank has been phenomenal there forever. So well respected, does a great job. They only get, I think, 2 non-league games a year.
And one of
So
them's Mercy. Yeah.
so that makes it really difficult, especially trying to find a spot with a date to fill it in.
That's true. That's a good point. And if I know one thing, because I started broadcasting with ATR fully, I think 2017, 2018, and it's always been Mercy they play in the beginning of the season. And
Yes.
Mercy, mind you, Mercy made it all the way to the champ game last year, lost to a very good New London team.
Yep.
Yeah, it's you talk about, the struggle of being able to find common dates. That's the biggest thing too.
Yeah, and because of the shortage of officials, every schedule is so different. Like when almost my whole coaching career until 3 or 4 years ago, we always played Tuesday, Friday.
Mhm.
So it was easy. We could always get a Wednesday game or maybe a Saturday or a Thursday game or something. All teams can fit that in now. It's week to week with us. We have no idea when we're playing. It's not a structured schedule.
Coach, I think the showcase was one of those things where every year it's going to continuously get better. Hopefully, with college coaches showing up. Obviously, I know participation will vary because everyone goes on vacation. I'm not trying to say you need to be at the showcase, but hopefully things can continue to grow. And for the players that can go, it can be a stepping stone in the right direction for the following season. You never know what could happen as far as, going into the season when you talk to the players. I would love to be able to talk to your players, or maybe you could tell me when the season starts next year, what they're saying and what they felt like the time now helped with as they went into the next season. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would love to do that with you, and especially knowing now that I think it might be the same weekend every year for the showcase. Now we can kind of plan a little more for it because this kind of came about in March,
Yeah.
April, something of that nature. So everyone that already had their lacrosse or softball and those schedules, granted they had them, you got to go to those, you have to do that. But now if we say, all right, listen, if you guys can just give us that Friday and Saturday
Mhm.
of Father's Day weekend, then plan everything else around that. Maybe most teams will probably be able to get some more numbers to show up.
Coach, now we got to get into the part that I kind of wish, with all the drama that's happened as far as, the last 24 to 48 hours. And, I don't know when you saw the article, either Sunday, today. I don't know if you woke up to it, somebody sent it to you. And before I even get any further, I just want to say I respect a lot of people at the Game Time. Obviously, people have their own judgment as far as the Jacobs article, who Jacobs, is the person who wrote it. I'm not sitting here to bash him. I'm not going to bash the article. I will say that I'm only here to be able to speak facts and get people's opinions. Just want to get that out of the way. Don't want anybody saying I'm hating or whatever. But I will say though, and I think being able to have you on is perfect. The article, I will admit though, it did kind of pit the NEPSAC and the CIAC, which there is no need for that because I think everybody's
None whatsoever.
exactly. Everybody's in for the common good. And I think, well, obviously the NEPSAC has started some things a little bit sooner than the CIAC. The CIAC is catching up slowly. Now, there's obviously more things in a factor that they can't do that the NEPSAC can do. But, and you'll kind of fill me in on this, the CIAC has found opportunities like with the showcase, and they're continuously building with that. Coach Linwall with St. Joe's was a big proponent of that, and there was so much good that came out of it. I mean, I remember speaking with the West Haven head coach, and he mentioned how, and this was something that was not in the article, right? With all the love for the NEPSAC kids, which they deserve it, but the CIAC kids do as well, right? There was a player from West Haven who I've had on my podcast. She was named the MVP, and she played with all NEPSAC kids. So that kind of like, I find it very hard, coach, where we're going to separate and put two groups on separate sides and then basically pit them against each other when there's no need for that.
Yeah, I agree. There's no need whatsoever. And I will say, I'm a huge fan of Scott Erickson with Game Time CT. He has done so many great things for girls basketball in particular. That it's hard that one of his colleagues is one of the people that like I was saying, I'm not sure if he just wanted to get a reaction out of people, because I was sent that article by about 15 different people that morning. And they're like, "Did you see this?" Because people, if you know me, I kind of just sometimes I'm not as filtered as I should be. But this time I read the article and I stepped back and I'm like, I'm not going to send anything because I'm not sure if that's all this individual really wanted. The NEPSAC is fantastic. They have fantastic programs. There are great young girls basketball players in the NEPSAC, but the CIC isn't so bad. We have all the kids from our towns that enjoy playing basketball, that want to play basketball. And I didn't realize that high school basketball was a means to an end. From the article I got that was written that, oh, it's only about what kids go play in college. How about all the kids that have such great lifelong lessons and make the friends and have the opportunities to do these things that a lot of other kids don't get? If you want to play in college, you'll find a way to play in college. I don't think it necessarily means that you're in a bad program because you play at a D2 or a D3 school. Maybe that's better academically. It's a better academic school for you. Maybe it has what you need. Maybe it's what your family can afford, and to have all this, maybe you want to play right away and not sit for 2 or 3 years before you get a chance to play. So I'm really disappointed with the article in the fact that, first of all, there was no one from CIAC and no CIC high school coaches that were interviewed at all. It was people that were interviewed. Some only have maybe a year of NEPSAC experience and don't really know the nuances and everything. So I was kind of disappointed with it, but from what this individual has written in the past, I actually wasn't surprised that it was written.
Coach, and I think you raised a great point that one is, needs to be echoed more. While it's great to be able to play Division One is not the end all be all. I mean, you think about, I'm just going to go, I know different gender and sport, but the NBA, we're not so much sport, but the gender side. In the NBA, we look at the Miami Heat. They made to the finals. They had multiple dudes that were undrafted and were Division 3 guys or two.
Yes.
And I know that's only one sport. Baseball, I could speak to how many. There was a kid pitching for the Mets out of the bullpen that went to UNH, Division 2, but still, half the league in the NFL is undrafted. I mean, just because you went Division 1 is not the end all be all. I broadcasted games in the NESCAC. I almost said NEPSAC. I've done them too. NESCAC is one of the most competitive Division 3 conferences in all of baseball, or just all of sports. Mitchell baseball, prime example, fantastic program, Division 3. There's great programs in Division 2. Eastern for men's basketball, women's basketball, softball. I mean, I can go on and on and on. Division 1 is not the end all be all. And I think there's so many fantastic players who I've witnessed that played Division 3, Division 2, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I felt like the article kind of lost sight of that and was looking so much at Division 1, playing the pros. Well, less than 1% playing the pros. What about the affordability? What about the fact of like you mentioned, the experience? That kind of, I felt like got lost a little bit, if that makes sense.
Let's be honest. There's a lot of kids that play in the NEPSAC that are going there because of the opportunities they might have or need for basketball. And I think that's fantastic. And there's a lot of kids that just want to play basketball. And I don't think you should discredit anything just by the amount of collegiate players come out of a program or come out of a system. I don't know. I'm just frustrated with the fact that you made up a great point when we were talking before, that this was such a huge step for the CIAC. And then all of a sudden, no one's talking about the showcase anymore because this gentleman had to write an article that kind of just swept us aside and said that we're not important and the NEPSAC is the only important league in the state. And again, it's not CIAC versus NEPSAC. They're fantastic. Great people there, great kids, great coaches, great programs. But I don't know why all of a sudden it had to be, a versus situation.
For years, I felt like girls basketball has been fighting to get the attention, right, from both media and other sides, right? And, there was a great weekend, Friday, Saturday, if you want to count the weekend, Friday starts, but still, it was an awesome time. And coincidentally enough, the article pops up on Sunday and it sucks up all the helium from that event. And people, while most, I hope, are still talking about it, a lot of it is the article. And they're instead of being able to talk about the experiences, show pictures, or whatever the case may be, there's now, I don't want to say bitterness, because there's not so much bitter, but it's I guess anger and frustration that it's like another obstacle that has to be dealt with, right? When it really doesn't
Yes.
need to.
Yeah. I agree 100%. It was such a great opportunity for all the CIAC, all the high schools. I got an opportunity to speak with a few college coaches. I thought it was great. Like, I didn't know what to expect coming in, and again, I didn't know it was a competition. I just for how many college coaches or how many big time or how many of these, I was just happy that there were people in watching our kids, and I think that's the best stepping stone for us moving forward.
I don't see it ever happening as far as game time moving away from the CIAC, but I do think that if they were to focus more on the NEPSAC, and again, no disrespect to the NEPSAC, but there's talent everywhere. And if you don't show the talent that is playing, it can really create something where it's almost like, once you take the toothpaste out of the tube, you can't put it back in. And if you start following and you follow what the gentleman wrote, right? And if you end up going that path, you then create almost where frustration probably will not be repaired, right? With the side that you're basically kind of pushing to the side. Does that make sense? Maybe I'm not explaining it right.
No, it does. It definitely makes sense. And again, there are so many great writers for Game Time CT,
Right.
people who I respect and have respected for a long time. And I never want to generalize, kind of like this gentleman did, and put everyone into one spot.
Right.
If there was a way I could say, hey, I would like to just make sure we X that individual's articles out of my thing, I'll get that subscription with all the other stuff with it. But you can't. It's either one or nothing. And I feel bad for a lot of the other people that have put so much time and effort into trying to really grow the game of girls basketball in the state of Connecticut with the CIAC, to have this one article kind of be front and present now for no apparent reason.
Like you said, there's so many great, writers, and also too from Game Time, also people that I've met. Joe Morelli's fantastic. Scott, who I
Yes.
talk baseball with, his son's killing it on the diamond, the little diamond.
Yep.
I saw him hitting tanks, which it'll be interesting to see how that turns out over the next couple of years. If he turns out to be the stud, which could very well be. We know what Pete and Sean do with football, and there's so many guys I can't even, and young women too, who write for Game Time that I'm not mentioning. But like you said, it's a shame that one bad apple kind of makes the entire, to steal a dog or a cat, like the litter, right? It kind of spoils the
Yep.
litter per se, because of that one person who, if this was just one article, fair, maybe just had a bad day. But this is, like, according to what I've heard from people, years of this kind of stuff that was building. And then people wonder, was this an attention grabber? Was this something where, like, some people have told me, trying to aspire to be Skip Bayless, a national media
Yeah.
person? You hope that's not the case, because then you're kind of, again, it's one thing to do the athletes that are in the pros, they're making millions, they can handle it, hopefully. But these
Yeah.
are high school kids. They are not getting paid. They're high school kids.
And I just think that, don't diminish these kids for what they've done or what they're trying to do, because again, 99% of them aren't trying to go D1 and play at that level in college. Most of them aren't even going to play in college. So this, just let the kids enjoy. This was a great experience, but whatever he was trying to do, he did it because everyone's talking about it. Everyone in the coaching world is talking about it. Everyone else is talking about it. I was at school for camp, our girls basketball camp today, and a couple of my administrators were like, wow, did you read that article? And I'm like, unfortunately, yes, I did. I wish I hadn't, but I did.
Jeremy, I really appreciate you coming on. A lot of fun being able to talk with you. Awesome to be able to have the conversation, at least in the first part. Second part, I wish we didn't have to
Yes.
have that conversation, but it had to be done. Thanks so much for being able to come on, and I appreciate it.
Chris, I appreciate you and all you do for all the youth sports and high school sports. Watching your podcast and seeing all that you do. Kudos to you. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thanks again. I'll wrap things up in the CT Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. Remember, CT stands for Connecticut Talent. I'm going to try to find them all. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody, and be well.